Vanakkam. Today I am going to cover a very another important area in bank audit. That is verification of valuation report. That is going to be very important. If anyone who applies for the loan, then the manager say that go and get the valuation, because the loan is being sanctioned based on the valuation given by the chartered engineer who is a panel valuer of the bank. So now, as an auditor, what are the important things that we have to look into the valuation report? And though the presentation is related to bank audit, this will be useful even for your personal verification, even for your personal advice to your client. I am just sharing my experience. It's all my experience, and I want to highlight a few points on the valuation. First thing, if your manager asks you to go and meet the valuer to get the valuation, you have to ask the manager, sir, kindly give me a letter addressed to the valuer so that I can go and approach him with the letter. Being a valuer, he has to value the property only after seeing the valuation authorization letter given by the branch. Without that, no valuer is not supposed to take up the valuation. This is because who is going to pay the fees? Normally, few managers say that you go and discuss with the valuer, whatever fees you will give, you fix, you give. But that should not be the procedure. As per the norms of IBA, the valuation fee has to be paid through bank from the customer's account. So banks, all banks, they fix the fees according to the valuation category. For land reporting, there is one valuation fee, and for building, land and building, another valuation fee, and for agricultural land, there is another valuation fee. So you kindly note that the valuation fee has to be paid through bank from the customer's account. So the customer is not supposed to make direct payment. This will save lot of customers from payment of high fees to the engineer. So the fees to be paid to the valuer should be based on the bank's norms. So the branch has to give authorization letter to the customer to go and see the panel engineer. Then the engineer now is ready to go and inspect the property. At the time of verification, one bank official should accompany the valuer. That is, the valuer should not go alone and see the property, because in the valuation report there is one column who has accompanied the valuer. So the valuer has to give in his report saying that this branch manager, this loan officer, this clerk he has accompanied me during the valuation. This is a specific condition in the valuation report. When you look into the valuation report, kindly note that the person who has assisted, who has accompanied the valuer during the valuation. Nowadays, the valuation has to be done by IVS. That is nothing but International Valuation Standard. So nowadays, all valuers, they change according to the IVS. So whether IVS rules have been followed or not, the engineer has to give in his report. Nowadays, role of IBA comes into the picture. That is Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India. They have classified three valuation. One is valuation for land and machinery, plant and machinery, and valuation for land and building, valuation for machinery. For this, separate engineers are there, separate examinations they are conducting. Then for us and for other professionals like ICMA, ICSI, valuation for SFA, securities and financial assets. There are three types of valuation being approved by the IBBA. They will be helpful during the insolvency proceedings. IBBA helps the valuer to do the valuation who have cleared the examination. Then when the valuer has submitted the report, then he has to give his appointment letter to that bank. Almost 90% of almost in my audit experience, I have not seen any, almost 90%, no valuer has submitted the report with his appointment letter. Because the appointment letter is being given by the head office to the valuer for a particular period. It is not for lifetime. And that too is authorized to do only the valuation at a particular place. Since I am at Salem, the valuer should value the property only to the area restricted to Salem. They are not supposed to go to the other place. So the place of valuation should be mentioned in the appointment letter given to the engineer. So if you see the valuation report, if there is no such letter, then you can make a point in your report stating that the appointment letter copy is not enclosed. Then we will discuss about the content of valuation. Before going to that, you see that the valuation report given by the panel engineer contains all pages intact. That means all pages should be intact. Then normally the valuation for land and building has to be done by the chartered engineer or BE graduate who has qualified in civil. Land and building to be valued by civil, BE civil. That is chartered engineer, BE civil. And for machinery, it has to be valued by the engineer who has qualified in machinery, that is BE machinery, mechanical. He has to give the certification. This is the thing you have to be bear in mind, because sometimes you happen to see the machinery valuation done by the civil engineer. If that is being done, you have to see that whether that valuer is being specifically authorized by the bank to do machinery valuation also. So for that only I said you get the appointment letter copy to be attached, to be enclosed along with the valuation report. Then in that report, you see that whether the bank name and branch name is properly typed, correctly typed. Then you see the date of the report. Date of the report is different. Visit date is different. Or visit date or valuation date is different. Visit date is something and valuation date is something, and date of the report is something. There are three types of dates the engineer is going to give. So you have to be careful. The date of report is the date on which the engineer is giving the report. The visit date is the date on which the engineer has visited the unit. Valuation is the date that he has considered the date of valuation on which the value is being arrived at. This is the thing you have to see. Then what about the ownership of the property? That is also to be specifically mentioned by the engineer. So there are two types of thing you have to see. One is address of the borrower, to whom the property is being valued, and whose property is being valued, that is the property owner. For both address of the borrower and address of the property owner should be mentioned with contact numbers that they have to give. And what is the type of valuation, whether he is going to do valuation for land or land and building or factory, everything he has to give. Whether the building is, whether he is going to value land and building, he has to give separate type of working. For land, it's a separate type of working. And almost for land valuation, the fees will be less, because he has to see the document. He has just put the extent, just he has to give the valuation, because there is no strain involved by the engineer. He has to give the square feet rate, that's all. Then he has to see, in land valuation there is a problem, because you are not able to identify the exact land, because the sketch says some land, and normally few customers they show some other land as his property. So for that he has to be very, very careful. So he has to put location map, how the engineer has left his office, then how he reached the place of security. Everything he has to show in the map by marking the nearest landmark. And in the report, he has to give correct description about the property, about north, south, east, west, everything he has to give properly. Then the engineer has to give another thing, type of construction, whether that building, suppose if he is giving valuation for a building, the type of construction he has to give, whether it is RCC or metastairs or thatched or tiled house, everything he has to be specifically give in his report. Then the purpose for which that valuation is being taken, that is whether it is for business or for industrial purpose, for housing loan purpose, everything he has to give. And in that, if any building valuation is given, he has to consider DTCP, that is District Town Country Planning, or LAP, that is Local Authority Planning. This he has to mention in his report specifically. Then there are how to value the property of differently. there will be different type of valuation. One valuation you will adopt for lane. For if there is any, if the house property or property is situated in a lane, then there should be a different type of valuation. Then the road should have 16 feet, then the valuation is entirely different. If he is valuing for marriage hall, the valuation is different. If any tower line goes, then as per the norms of IBS, they have to give 30% deduction in the land extent, because to that, to what extent the line goes. So normally what they provide, it is reduction of, suppose if the total square feet is 10,000, if power line goes, then 30% they will have to reduce. You see whether power line is going or not. In his report he has to specifically mention saying that no power line is going. If it goes, then the total extent is reduced by 30%. This you have to see from your valuation report. Then, if there is any channel, in Tamil it is called as Odai, that is a small thing. If it goes, then you have to get your certificate, because you are going to use that channel to reach your loan, to reach your land, to reach the land of the borrower. If any channel is going on, then you have to get your certificate from the respective panchayat, getting the permission to cross the channel to reach that land. This certificate has to be mentioned specifically by the panel engineer. Please see, if there is no such certificate, then you have to mention that point in your report. Otherwise, that land is has got no passage value. Then, in order to identify the land that is apart from Porambok, you have to get a FMB sketch, and the engineer has to has to state that there is no Porambok land and everything land is being approved. And in the case of apartments, the engineer has to calculate the UDS, undivided share, properly, so that all properties have been come into the picture as per the plan approval. Then in his report, he has to mention the age of the building. What is the existing age, what is the life of the building, everything has to be specifically mentioned, because the age of the building plays a very, very vital role in taking insurance also. Then the locality importance and boundary details, everything has to be specifically mentioned by the engineer. And you have to see whether the engineer has given a specific command that he has compared the extent and the location, boundary, everything with the legal opinion. So he has to specifically mention in his report saying that I have covered the, I have compared the legal opinion with my report. This is a specific comment he has to give. And sometimes the in document there will be say 2,000 square feet, but when he measured, he'll be getting around 1,800 square feet. Then he has to give value only for 1,800 and not for 2,000. The exact extent which is available has to be valued. So if 2,000 square feet is there in the document, if the engineer says it is only 1,800, then the engineer has to value only for 1,800. Sometimes the document says 2,000, the customer say that the extent, total extent is 2,250, then the valuer has to value as per the document and not per the physically available. So he has to give the value only to the extent of 2,000. Then what is the distance from the branch to the property, that also he has to specifically give. And what is the nearest landmark, that also the engineer has to give. And the main thing is approach to the property. That is, there should be proper road, proper entrance to reach that property. That has to be specifically given. That is called as land block, or it should not be easy to, suppose if there is any difficult to reach that place, that has to be say that that property has got no value. Without passage value, that property is very, very, the value is zero, because there is no approach to the property. There are so many cases. I'll cover those type of problems in my separate video, because I plan to cover, I have planned to give bank video on frauds separately. I'm going to case all live examples of frauds which has happened in my experience, in my audit career. I'm going to give that thing in separately. Then approach approach road is important. Then the purpose for which the valuation is being done, that is whether it is for land or for land and building or for factory building or housing loan, everything he has to give. Then the engineer has to certify that that property is a freehold property or leasehold property. Because normally lease properties cannot be taken as security. Only the freehold property has to be taken as security. The freehold is valid for if there is any agreement. If it is a lease land or if you are giving any permission, then the life of the property is, if any agreement is entered for 99 years, then only it will be called as freehold. Otherwise, it's being sold to someone. And another point he has to mention in his report, saying that he has verified the entire property document. That is the thing he has to specifically mention. He has verified the document. That is very much important, because he has to take copy of the document. He has to verify those copy of the documents with the legal opinion. This is a very, very important thing, because the engineer has to verify the um, title deed. What apart from title deed, he has to verify the patta, chitta, adangal, kandayam, and even sometimes he has to verify the encumbrance certificate also, because he is almost advocate. So he has to compare everything with the advocate. Then he has to specifically mention whether those property is situated within the municipal limit or outside the municipal limit. That he has to verify. Then occupied position, whether it's being owned or rental, everything he has to say. Then because if it is a rented property and if it is very difficult to vacate the property, from the banker's angle the property will be less. If it is self-occupied, no problem, the engineer will give more value. Suppose if it is 2000 rupees, he will give 2000. If it is owned by or rented to some 7%, 8%, he will give only less value, because it is very difficult to get the possession of the property. Then the engineer has to give specifically that land is approved, that property is approved, everything is built as per the approved plan. And if there is any deviation, that also he has to give in his report. This is the thing, he has to be specific. And extent of what is the extent of the land, what is the extent of the building, whether ground floor, what is the ground floor, first floor, second floor, everything he has to verify. And he has to give value the property separately for land, separately for the ground floor, first floor, second floor, everything he has to give separately by giving the square feet, how much square feet he has verified. Then with that square feet he has to give the working. Then as an auditor, sometimes few engineers made mistake in the calculation part. Suppose if the land is 2000 square feet into 500, you will put 1 lakh, sometimes 10 lakhs, sometimes 1 crore. So the correct calculation has to be verified by the chartered accountant. You give this work to the staff, or even because this will be only 3 lines, so you can easily verify it. This is going to be my video presentation in the first part of valuation, and you see that everything is important in valuation, and I'm going to give in detail in my next video, because you have to continuously watch both part 1 and part 2. For life constraint, I am just shifting to my part video presentation. And thanks for watching this presentation of N valuation. You see that this will be useful to your life also. Thank you very much. Nandri, Vanakkam.